Well, the son of Muammar Gaddafi, Saif al-Islam, has been sentenced to death by firing squad, along with 8 other men who belong to the country's former government. Well, Gaddafi has been sentenced to death by the self-proclaimed government in Tripoli, an unrecognized Islamic government that came to power, forcing other rival governments out of the Libyan capital. We need to point out here, he never held office. He was never an official member of his father's regime, Jose. And in this, he's been sentenced along with these 8 other men who actually were a part of the formal government. Don't you see this as sort of a slap in the face of anybody who's supported him? You know, he had a lot of Western allies, you know, just not that long ago, just a few years ago, the French, the U.S. government, among other Western allies, and now the ICC is holding him accountable for war crimes, and some de facto government that's not been a legitimate force in a very long time, or if ever, we don't have a record of them ever being legitimate. They're saying he has to die.
I mean, it's awful to see, obviously, the outcry from many human rights watchdogs around the world about the situation where it's merely political. It's a statement from this illegitimate government to any supporter of the Gaddafi regime that if they support Gaddafi, that's their fate.
Right. Well, a militia outside of Libya is actually holding him. And, you know, they have to give him up for execution, and we don't know if they're actually going to give him up because they're obviously, you know, he's being jailed, but he's being held by a separate militia. Here's what he had to say about the U.S., and this quote is really telling of how he feels betrayed. He says, "Many countries, Iran and North Korea are among them, told us it was our mistake to give up, to have stopped developing long-range missiles, and to become friendly with the West. Our example means one should never trust the West and should always be on alert. For them, it's fine to change their mind overnight and start bombing Libya." You know, he's a very bitter man. They've murdered his father. We're going after, you know, we're not going after him, but we've allowed this de facto government because we help destabilize Libya, whether people admit to that or not. If you recall roughly the starting, because Gaddafi said that he was going to start trading on the gold standard, among other things, we suddenly had an issue with his human rights record after a myriad of things. But I remember that being kicked off. I remember being at an event, it was a Kuwaiti event, and listening to people talk about how the U.S. was going to go after him or by de facto allow others to. I didn't believe it. It wasn't until I saw it, you know, playing before us on YouTube, him being dragged through the streets, that we actually did have a hand in that, arguably, in my opinion.
I mean, it's very common for the West to do that. You know,
we prop them up with our CIA and then we tear them.
We go and we prompt them up and we set them up, and if they serve our purpose, then we continue doing business in any capacity. But if not, we can start a war against them or just allow other wars to consume the country. We're talking about the livelihood of many, many people that live, that die every day in that country because we just use these territories in the Middle East for a global power chess game. And I see his point. And I think what is scary is the idea that still many people in Libya are going to listen to his message. And it's going to prop up that anti-US sentiment that is very, very present in the Middle East.
I mean, he was once a serious ally. He hailed democracy. The West, we hailed him as a proponent of change, and he's been a very strong, outspoken, not a leader because he never held office, but a very strong mouthpiece for democracy. He was educated, I think he has a PhD from the London School of Economics. We're not talking about some thug who, you know, he went through the proper channels. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. But the ICC, the International Criminal Court, indicting him for war crimes, you know, it's ironic because we have, you know, the U.S., we send, you know, our own legal, I wouldn't say our legal system, but members of our legal team to you know, head up the ICC. So does France. Incidentally, the Gaddafi family, he has actually said this, that they supported Sarkozy's election, that they funded it, and how ironic that, you know, they're propping up elections in the West and now we see it tumbling down.
It is. It's the hypocrisy of the West.
I don't know what it is, but it's not in his favor, that's for sure. Anyway, we'd love to know what you think about Gaddafi's son. He's been sentenced to die after a 2-day trial, death by firing squad. Log on, post those comments below about this story. Also, our involvement, our own foreign policy. How do you feel about it? Post your comments below. While you're at it, be sure to subscribe to the rest of our channel, the Lib TV 2, for more.